I've written an episode of a series, a comedy, I hope. I've been staring at it for 10 years and I've done nothing. But what if I submit it and someone thinks it's rubbish? What if I'm not funny? What if I open up my soul and it remains open forever, like an open wound? That is a real quote from somebody named Shell, a reader of my now defunct Substack blog, in which I encouraged readers to open up about their fears. If you've clicked on this video, then chances are you share that kind of fear that Shell has. You have at least one project that you're not finishing because the voice keeps coming up in your head, doesn't it? The voice that says,
what if someone thinks I'm rubbish? What if I can't do this? What if I send this out into the world and really regret it?
We've absolutely all done it. And I think we need to have a little chat about it. Coming up in this video, I'll tell you which of the two types of fear this particular fear fits, how I personally deal with criticism as an author, and most importantly, the one word that will change your whole mindset about the prospect of your writing being called rubbish. The first thing to say is that you are absolutely not alone. There's Shell for a start. Shell felt the same way that you feel now. And if you printed out all the half-written manuscripts in the world and half-written scripts, put them all together, it would probably take 1 million of those vast warehouses at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark to store them. So what can we do about this fear that eats away at us and paralyzes us? Well, there are two different types of fear that writers have, and there are two different types of fear in general. There are motivators and inhibitors. Now, motivators can actually be good. Even though fear isn't a nice thing to experience, some fears can be motivators. For instance, the worry that someone might think your writing is rubbish could drive you to write better and make sure they don't have cause to think it's rubbish. So in that way, it's a positive, it's a motivator. But for the most part, I think it's an inhibitor because it's more likely to paralyze people and stop them writing altogether. The main problem with this fear, though, is that it perpetuates the idea that someone or something can be objectively good or bad. Unless your project literally consists of random words daubed onto a barn door using unmentionable bodily substances, I can guarantee that some people will love it and absolutely some people will not. It's impossible, as I'm sure you realise, to write something that everybody in the world loves. And that is part of the job, I'm afraid. We do have to come to terms with that. Let me tell you how I deal with it. I'm happy if there's a generally good consensus about my novels, and it doesn't bother me if someone thinks it's rubbish. It would bother me more if everyone thought it was rubbish. That might be unfortunate and, yes, a bit depressing. But there's always another book to be written. You can always win people back. My first novel, The Last Days of Jack Sparks, has got some amazing reviews, and the consensus is generally good. But there are people who really didn't like it at all. And my favourite 2-word review of The Last Days of Jack Sparks is quite simply on Amazon, stupid book. Stupid book. That is amazing. And it's hard to take that personally. I don't think the person who wrote that is calling me stupid. He just thinks the book's stupid. He didn't connect with it, and that's something else we'll talk about in a minute. But let me tell you something else about my second novel. Ghoster has a female lead character, and I've had lots of people, especially women, joyously telling me how well I handled writing a kind of a realistic female character in Kate Collins. But then one day I went on to, I'm pretty sure it was Reddit or something, and found a thread in which people, mainly women, unhappily, were taking a kind of forensic scalpel to some of the scenes in Ghoster and just pulling it apart and laughing at my depiction of this female character. It was as if I'd written 50 Shades of Grey or something, or I was one of these terrible male authors who has his female characters examine their chest in the mirror every 10 pages. So look at those extremes of reaction. That's what we're signing up for. That is going to happen. But just as there will always be people who hate what you do, there will be people who love it, and those are the people who you're writing for. But when it comes to art, which is, by the way, what we're all making, there is no simple truth. There is no one reality. It is all about how someone responds to it. And I want you to take on board, very much so, the idea of chemistry. How someone reacts to your book or your script is all about chemistry. And it's just about them as a person and how they react to what you've created as a person. People don't always gel together, do they, when they meet? It's chemistry. We talk about chemistry all the time when it comes to dating, but we don't really stop to think about how chemistry really dictates how people respond to our art. We have to take it less personally. Even in dating, if someone doesn't have the right chemistry with you, do you really take that personally? No, it's just you're not the right match. Think about your readers as being potentially the right or wrong match for the book. Shapes that do or don't fit together. To go back to Shell's original quote, let's consider how deeply subjective what's funny and what isn't happens to be. But it's still subjective. I can't stress enough that what matters most, especially in the early days of you writing and getting the drive to see something through, is that you love it. And that is what you have to cling to. Write down before you start a project why you love this thing. I made a story planner worksheet for my own projects in which I write down why I'm excited about it, along with a whole load of other things like who my main character is, what they want, why they can't get it, that kind of stuff. I made these worksheets available in my Patreon shop, by the way, and you'll find a link in the video description. But yeah, trust your project, have faith in it, believe in yourself, and also believe equally that not everyone will be a match for what you're making, and that's okay. If you do find yourself doubting a project while you're writing it, go back to that story planner worksheet or just the piece of paper that you wrote originally what you're excited about and stuck it on the wall, and remind yourself what the original spark was for the idea. Don't let the fear of someone thinking your work is rubbish derail you for no reason. If you genuinely don't think that your current project is good enough at the moment, then that's what redrafts are for. So get to the end of this draft and figure it out later. You'll improve it. And if it's the first draft, then no one besides you will ever see it. So forget about that fear and carry on. One day, if you want to get your book published or your script made, you will receive notes, and you have to be prepared to act on them, especially if the person giving them knows what they're talking about, because that kind of advice and that kind of perspective can be gold. But right now, while you're working on the project, you have to just rely on your own assessment. That's all you can do, and that's good enough. I also feel that if you're currently at some kind of creative standstill because you're worried that someone might think your writing is rubbish, what you need to do is realize and accept that loads of other people feel the same. And the great way to do that is to join a really warm and inviting writing community. I've opened one up. At the start of February 2024, I've opened a place called the Fantasia Lounge, which is a community on the platform School, which is a great platform, and I think you might enjoy it. At the time that I'm making this video, it's free. It may not be in the future, but if you join now, then you get grandfathered in and it will be free lifetime access for you. So I invite you to go down into the video description, hit the link to the Fantasia Lounge and join us. I hope you've got some real value from this video, but here's the thing. Even once you've accepted that there is no objective reality on art, and the way that someone responds to your art is determined by sheer chemistry, there are lots of other things that will keep you from achieving your writing goals. If you'd like to find out why your writing goals have gone straight to hell, you'll want to watch this video up there, which will help you get back on track. Enjoy.